I want to game out with you guys the various possible outcomes for the 2020 election, but I admit I'm sort of scared to do this on the show because there will be people in the audience who will misunderstand what I'm doing, either deliberately or they will just misunderstand it. There will be people in the audience who think that I am in this segment going to suggest we support someone other than a real progressive in 2020. And I want to be clear, I'm doing this segment because this is what we do on the show. This is the type of thing that over the years people have come to appreciate about the show. We think about things. We consider possibilities. We discuss them. But let me put this in front of everything so that I am not misunderstood. We should vote for the person whose values and policies most closely match ours. And I am a progressive, so I believe we should vote for a progressive. Now, that being said, that disclaimer given, I want to game out 2020 with you. Let's imagine 4 basic scenarios for 2020. Think about it like a 2x2 grid. On one side, there's the possibility that Democrats nominate either a centrist or a progressive. For this example, we could say Biden or Bernie. You could say Klobuchar or Warren if you want to go by the New York Times endorsements, whatever. The Democrats could nominate a centrist or a progressive. Along the other axis is the possibility that Donald Trump either wins re-election or loses it. This gives us 4 possible outcomes. You could nominate a progressive and see them lose to Trump, or you could nominate a progressive and see them defeat Trump and become president. You could also see a centrist nominated and lose to Donald Trump, or you could see a centrist nominated and defeat Donald Trump. I want to explore with you whether the best outcome for the long term for progressives might be that a centrist like Joe Biden be nominated, but lose to Donald Trump in 2020. I've read some articles about this over the last few months, and I want to think through the scenarios with you. Let's first imagine that a progressive is nominated, but loses to Trump in November. This is bad for the progressive movement because it will be used not only by the right, but it'll even be used by the centrist left to say, look, you got a shot, you nominated a progressive, and they lost. This proves we can't move the party to the left. Centrism and moderation and trying to compromise with crazy Republicans is the path forward, and that could damage the left for a long time to come. Next scenario would be that a progressive is nominated and wins, defeats Donald Trump in 2020. In this case, that progressive would have to govern with a likely Republican Senate for at least 2 years, if not more, and the serious possibility of losing control of the House in the midterms, as often happens when you have a party change in a presidential election. The next midterm, the party that takes control in the presidential loses control of the House. Now, none of that's guaranteed, but particularly with the Republican Senate, and especially if Democrats lose control of the House in 2022, this would be a progressive president who will undoubtedly fail to accomplish many of their major campaign promises. And it would also be called a major defeat for the progressive left. Look, you got someone in there and they didn't do a damn thing. Republicans will take advantage. Centrist Democrats will say, look, you won and you couldn't do anything in 2022 and in 2024 and beyond. There are counter arguments and we'll get to them later. We're being thorough here. Next possibility, a centrist like Joe Biden wins the nomination and defeats Trump in 2020. Now, to a lot of us, this feels very unlikely, myself included. But let's imagine that Biden is nominated and wins. This is, of course, terrible for the progressive movement because Joe Biden's not a progressive. This would allow the centrist Democrats to claim the way to fight the right is with a moderate like Joe Biden. They'll say, look, we nominated a centrist and a centrist won. They will say that's evidence that progressivism is not the way to go. Now, Biden, of course, won't do anything hugely progressive because he's not a progressive. And the center left will say, this is the way to go. This is how you win with a centrist Democrat. That could also damage the progressive movement for a long time. So then we get to scenario number 4, which again, is this the best game theory outcome, which is that Biden or another centrist is nominated, but they lose to Donald Trump in November of 2020. In the long term, this might be the best for the progressive movement. Number one, it would continue to provide support for the idea that the way to beat the right is not with a centrist, because you'll have Hillary having lost to Trump and Biden having lost to Trump. That's a real strong case that it's really time for a progressive. A centrist would have been nominated and lost again. We would also get another 4 years of an even more unhinged and erratic Trump, who no longer has to run for re-election, who would likely be even crazier than the Trump of the first term. And this might further justify supporting a true progressive as the obvious and only way to go in 2024. Now, of course, that would be a pretty bad 4 years for the United States of America. So I'm not here to suggest we elect Joe Biden. I'm not voting for Joe Biden in the primary. I'm not here to suggest we allow Donald Trump to win in 2020. What I'm presenting to you from a game theory perspective is the possibility that over the long term, the progressive left might benefit from Biden being the nominee and losing to Trump, despite it being an absolutely horrible outcome for the country in the immediate. Now, there are many counter arguments to be made. Let's make some of them. One is a progressive president elected in 2020 wouldn't lose the House in 2022, nor would they suffer from a Republican Senate the entire presidency. They might not get it in 2020, but they could likely get it in 2022. And then they could actually get some things done. They could put in place some of the most significant progressive change in history. That's a possibility. That would be a counter argument that one could make. It would require a reversal from historic trends, but it is a completely valid counter argument to what I'm suggesting. Another counter argument would be there are people who feel super strongly that Bernie and Warren simply would not lose to Trump and that they would get a lot done. Let me know what you think. Game it out with me. And again, we're talking like adults here. I'm voting for a progressive and I'm voting to defeat Donald Trump. This is a conversation that I'm having with you about the 4 possible outcomes. One of our sponsors is privacy.com. They're giving you $5 when you sign up for their completely free service at privacy.com/Pakman. I've been using Privacy for a little over a year now. You've heard me talk about it before. It's a lifesaver, and here's how it works. It takes just a couple of minutes to set up. Anytime you buy something online or on the phone, instead of actually using your real credit card number, the Privacy app and the browser plugin let you give each company a randomized virtual credit card number that you create out of thin air. It'll even autofill the card number with one click. And the payment is taken out of your checking account without the merchant ever knowing your real information. So this allows you to keep your banking information secure, but also to take control of your finances. You can create up to 12 of these virtual credit cards a month. You can set spending limits. You can freeze them. You can delete them anytime you want. So when you do this, it means you're not going to be charged when you don't want to be, because you can destroy the virtual card number right after using it, which, for instance, I love using free trials because I know I won't be charged when the trial is over if I use a virtual credit card number. You're keeping your identity private by not telling companies who you are. You're keeping your bank or credit card info protected against data breaches and identity theft, and it's free. There's no catch whatsoever. But if you want, Privacy also offers a $10 a month plan that gives you 1% cash back and lets you create 36 credit cards a month, and a $25 a month plan tailored more for small businesses where you can create 60 card numbers a month and much more. But definitely go ahead and at least get started with the free plan. You'll protect your financial info. Companies can't charge you unexpectedly. And like I said, you'll get $5 to spend when you sign up at privacy.com/Pakman.